Hey everyone, welcome back to another Marvel Legends review. Today we are doing a double review on the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight and Moon Knight from the Moon Knight Disney Plus TV series. So, taking a look at the box for these guys, they both have the open windows showing them and their accessories. On the sides, you can see some concept art of Mr. Knight and Moon Knight. On the back, here is Mr. Knight and Moon Knight with the rest of the figures in the wave. And then that same concept art image on the other side. So, with that through, let's crack these guys open. So here are the two figures out of the packaging, and I have a lot to say about these guys, especially the Mr. Knight figure, but we're going to save that for later and get him out of here. And we're going to be looking at Moon Knight first. So I actually really like this Moon Knight and the amount of detail that's been added in. So getting a closer look at him, can see the bandages all across his body, actually. On his face, you can see the bluish hue around the eyes. You can see all this sculpting in his hood. Again, in his body, you can see just all of that bandage wrap. Kind of stops at the legs, but it's all on the arms. You can see all the little gold highlights, the little crescent moon here, crescent moon on the chest. I think that's actually supposed to be like a little moon thing right here with that behind the moon crescent. More crescent on the belt. Crescent on both of the knees, just on the outside. You can see some engravings on the thighs here. On the back, there's not much. It's just bandages on the back and then some skirt piece here. That was same on the waist. And even on the hands, there's bandages, which just really cool. Wow. So, yep, that's all the detail for him. So let's take a look at Mr. Knight real quick. So looking at Mr. Knight, he looks kind of off. So looking at his head, it looks alright, but then everything else just looks weird. This is actually something on both of these figures is their feet are ginormous. That's like the feet compared to the head. The feet are bigger. The feet are bigger than their own heads, so that's like ginormous feet. They have this overlay for Mr. Knight here. This completely restricts all movement, by the way. No movement at all. It's just a very, not soft, but also not hard rubber overlay piece. And I don't like it. And then speaking of that, like it rises up and then makes the arms look weird, or even weirder than they are. Because looking at the arms, these things are thin. Like this is so thin. And it just feels flimsy, like that feels like it could break. The other figure's arms don't feel like that, but that's because these are reuse and just old. You can see the pins in here. And yeah, these are reuse of the old suited body figure. So these things are so thin and just flimsy that it throws off a lot of the proportion for this guy. When they went and made everything else new except for the body, like he's got new legs here that are they're alright, you know, they work. But yeah, no detail on the back really. He's got some buttons here and just a little bit of sculpted wrinkles, but I don't really like this guy. You can see again the blue hue in his eyes here. And I like the mask here, but this is just such an annoying figure to work with just because he's got all this nice detail, and then there's the arms that throw off the body, and it's another suited body. They need to make like a whole new mold for this. Like this should have been a whole new mold. Mr. Knight is such a big character for the comic run he's in. It is such a big part in the comics. And then they make this in the show, and it's just not as good as it really should be. So, yeah. Let's move on to accessories. So, for accessories, Mr. Knight has two interchangeable hands here, a left and a right, to hold these batons that he comes with. Right here are the batons. They've got some nice sculpted detail in them with some gold paint. This one right here is bent a little bit, but I don't really mind. These look good with him. And then Moon Knight here comes with two holding hands in the packaging, and then two fisted hands outside of the packaging. And those hands that he uses to hold things are these little crescent things that he pulls out of his chest in the show. And actually, you can put these things together to make an even thicker crescent. Wow. That's I don't understand the purpose of this. It like barely fits in his hands. Like you can put it like that, but then you're already stressing the plastic and it looks just like a banana. So I just recommend, like, I don't even use these with him actually. But whoop, there they go. If you are going to use these with him, just use the singular ones and put it in his hand. They fit a lot better. Just like that. But yeah, they're not the best accessories. So back to Mr. Knight. Just pop out his hands and pop in the other hands. And then you can just put in the batons, which I don't really remember him using all that much in the show. He really just kind of throws the crescent things here. Probably a lot more, but it is what it is. Next, I want to get into articulation, especially with Mr. Knight first. So, he has a hinge that gets him to look up very far, can look down and bury the chin. There is a little bit of pivoting here. He can look left and right. Arms, these are going out a lot farther than they did. So that's where they can go to. I don't know how it got up that far, but earlier it was only going down or up this far. So bicep swivel, these things can go all the way around. Double jointed elbows, but again, they are very flimsy, and I hate working with these because these are just so thin. Like, compare these to any other Marvel Legend figure. It's just so thin. Looking at Spider-Man's arm compared to the Mr. Knight arm here, it's so thin. Even comparing him to, like, his own, like, the Mark Spector figure. Like, these are the same guy. That is just thin. That is like half the size of his other arms. So I don't understand why Hasbro did this. But on his fisted hands, he does have a hinge on his that go up and down, and another hinge here on the weapon grabbing hands at the wrist that go side to side like this. He does have an ab crunch. It is there, but there's no way you're getting any movement out of that. This is the farthest it'll go, is just like not even a click. He won't go back at all either. Legs can go up this far. Back, not even. Can move his legs in past 90. And then he does have down and not even up at the legs at all, or the ankles. But he does have ankle pivot. So, moving on to articulation for the Moon Knight figure, which is a lot better, and I like this guy a lot more. Can look up just a little bit, down a lot more. You know, the cape really gets in the way. And just popping the head off real quick. This is how my cape came. I didn't even realize until I popped it off for the first time that there's supposed to be a peg that plugs into the back because there's a peg hole. But the peg is just warped all the way, so it doesn't really work, and it kind of just gets in the way of articulation. Like, he can look up a lot. That's a lot better. It's on a dumbbell joint, I'm pretty sure, or a double ball joint at the neck, and then he can look down a lot more. His arms can go, wow, that is a lot higher than Mr. Knight. Can go down, full 360. No butterfly joint on either of these figures. He has a bicep swivel, but that kind of looks really weird, just the way that they did it. This kind of happened with, like, I think Hawkeye too, but I don't really mind this. I don't know why they didn't cut above, like, this gold bit here. Like, that would probably be the ideal place to cut the bicep swivel, but you got double jointed arms here that are a lot like any other Hasbro arms with pinless stuff. They are very hard to move in all the way, but here they are, all the way in. The weapon holding hands have a hinge that goes side to side, and actually his fisted hands have a hinge that goes up and down, just barely, because these little wrist things here get in the way. And then here is the diaphragm joint. This thing goes down just that much. Back, not a whole lot more, and I expected there to be a cut here. And there is like a cut, but it's not supposed to move, which is just weird. Hasbro hasn't gotten the hold of like how to do diaphragm and waist joints yet. And they're just kind of testing stuff out with their Spider-Man figures, so here is kick, goes just up that far, back just a little bit. He can move in all the way. Legs or toes go up, down, and they can pivot. And you know what? Just because I don't like the cape that Hasbro added in, like, at all, like, it's nice texturing and stuff. It's got the same base shade of gray that Moon Knight does. It's just a hard plastic, and it gets in the way. So I went out and bought a custom cape from GPS Lot on eBay. So I went out and bought this custom cape from GPS Lot on eBay, and it's a lot better. Like, it's got wires running all throughout it, and look at the span that this cape gives you. Like, that's so much better than just this. You can do so much more with this cape. And because you can do so much more with it and get so many better poses with it, I'm just going to be keeping it on the Moon Knight figure on the shelf. So for size and scale, Moon Knight stands at 6¼ inches, while Mr. Knight stands just at 6 inches. Here is Mr. Knight and Moon Knight next to the two other figures from this wave that I've already reviewed, the Hawkeye and Kate Bishop figures. And so here they both are next to a No Way Home Spider-Man figure. I don't really have any other like characters associated with Moon Knight. I mean, I guess there could be a Daredevil, but I don't have Daredevil. I don't know if Moon Knight has partnered with Deadpool before, but I'm definitely sure that they've partnered with Spider-Man. So here's the No Way Home Spider-Man, the black and gold version, the only one I had on hand. And they scale pretty good together. So for my final thoughts on these two figures, you get a really good figure and a really bad figure. That one sucks. Don't buy Mr. Knight. I know he comes with the Build-A-Figure piece, and I was actually really mad that he was the one that had to build a figure piece because I wanted the Moon Knight figure the most. The show is called Moon Knight. He is the main character, or a main superhero that's been in the show. He's actually barely in his show though, but yeah, he is the main guy. And they marketed Mr. Knight as being something really cool, and so I guess that's why Hasbro gave him the Build-A-Figure piece, but I would much rather have had Hasbro give Moon Knight the Build-A-Figure piece and Mr. Knight be the one without the piece, because yeah, he wouldn't have sold like at all if he was the one without the piece. But these guys sold out so fast that I don't even think it would have made a difference. I would have just skipped out on Mr. Knight He's not even a really good version of he's not a good interpretation in the MCU or comic version, so if you want him on your MCU shelf, there's not much you can really do with him because he's not posable. If you want him on your comic shelf, then there's work to do. Switch out the arms, get rid of the overlay. That's probably the most you can do. But for this Moon Knight, let's get this garbage out of here. Moon Knight here though is amazing. Like I could have just went without switching out the capes, but I I switched out the capes and he's just amazing. His own accessories don't work that well. Like the bananas here that he throws, they're not the best. They're kind of hard to get into his hands, but they work. And surprisingly, Mr. Knight's little baton things work better for Moon Knight. I don't remember seeing Mr. Knight really use the batons all that much, but Moon Knight definitely uses them in the comics, so I know that, and it works here. I like actually think that this is my favorite MCU figure that they've put out in a long time, at least until those No Way Home figures come out. So if you want a figure of Moon Knight, get this one. That he's amazing. Again, I'll leave the link in the description below to GPS lot and the listing for this cape. So thank you for watching this video. I will see you guys in the next video. Please leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, and it helps the channel. Next week's video will be another double review with the MCU She-Hulk and Miss Marvel figures. So I'll see you next week for that.